thank you for coming along tonight. This is the first Brisbane Agile Academy Meetup session, so we're pretty excited about it, and this is a great turnout for the first one. When I checked today, we had 72 members, which I think is pretty awesome in 5 weeks. So thank you, and I'll now hand over to Jeff, Jeff Smith, who's the CIO at Suncorp, who are instrumental in all of this coming together.
Thanks, Fiona. All right, I'll share some thoughts with you. Now, some of the thoughts I'll share you may not think are tied directly to Agile Academy. I will try to tie that together as I go through this. And I don't have a PowerPoint or a presentation because if I did, I wouldn't follow it anyhow. So you'll have to. It's going to force you to kind of think a little bit laterally and where's he going with this? But I promise I'll try to tie some things together. I think to start off with, the first thing to recognize is we really are running, there's two economies running in the world today. There's the manufacturing economy, which is characterized by low input costs, volume helps you cover your overhead, and every additional unit you produce goes down in price. That's the Intel model. Now, how many people here think that Australia is going to have any kind of competitive advantage in that kind of environment? We just don't have the population for it, right? It's just we're never going to be, maybe in the resources area, there's a few things, but this is not going to be an area where we're going to be able to really thrive in. But the other economy is one that we can, which is the knowledge economy, which is characterized by curiosity and creativity and passion and the ability to solve things where the scale of our intellect is far more important than the scale of people that we have. And I want to give you a couple instances of that just to bring this into focus. The first is, and I go back to an area that I lived in for 12 years, which is the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco Bay Area has a population of about 4.5 million people, and that covers Oakland, the East Bay, San Francisco, the peninsula, as well down into San Jose. But it has a disproportionate amount of innovation that happens in that area, doesn't it? Disproportionate for the world, and it's kind of crazy. Less population than Melbourne. So it shows that there is opportunity for Australia to have an absolutely leading industry if we take a look and learn from where things have operated well. Now, they've in Stanford and Berkeley, both on both sides of the bay. Got a good venture capitalist community there. But the most important thing is they attract fantastic people, and they create a great working environment for them to be productive. The second thing is one of the companies there, and I've told this story before, but I'll repeat it because it's just important to get a good context, is John Gage was the CTO for Sun Microsystems for about the first 10 years, and he did a study on innovation with Berkeley. And they took a look at the history of innovation in our industry, the IT industry, the last 30 years, and it started off with Microsoft and Sun Workstations for electrical and mechanical engineers, the Mosaic browser, Yahoo portal, Google search engine, and they all had one thing in common. They were all formed by students. Very interesting. And so they thought, how in the world, you got IBM and Microsoft spending $10 billion a year in R&D. Why aren't they creating new things? And they came to a few conclusions, and the most important of which is that they said that students had clarity of purpose, had absolute passion and conviction and diversity of thought. Very good characteristics to be able to do that. They also equated some of this to youth, and I think there's a mistake here. The big mistake. It had nothing to do with youth. What it did have to do with is that those students were coming from learning organizations. On average, students at Berkeley and Stanford, which is primarily where these companies respond from, took an average of 22 to 25 credit hours per week, which is roughly 5 courses over 4 years for an undergraduate degree. You're talking about constantly adapting and learning and listening. So their listening skills quite acute, their learning skills quite acute. So what they attributed it to was youth. It wasn't that. They had a learning environment. And unfortunately, as we get older, we're paid more to do than we are to learn. And then what happens is that muscle starts to atrophy. It's no different than any physical muscle you have. And then if you don't exercise it, you start making all your decisions based on your past actions. Knowledge, unfortunately, gives us the wisdom to do our job. It's also the single biggest constraint to looking forward and seeing what else can be done. So the big thing is, how do you create a good learning environment? So when I started in 2007 here at Suncorp, we had a big challenge merging two big companies together, different ecosystems, different learning environments, but there were some consistencies, and some things that scared me. And one was outside of how much money we spent, I was taking a look at where was new innovation coming and where were we putting stuff out in the market. To give you some statistics, we had upgraded Amy.com for 4 years, GIO Agile.com for about the same. Internet banking, we had played around with where we're going to upgrade the platform for a number of years, and we didn't have good signals that we were going to be able to take this on and generate the synergies that we were required to do. And it scared me. To be quite honest, I thought, man, this is not going to work in its current form. And there's two big lessons I think that I've learned in my career that stand the test of time. And that one is past performance is a good indicator of future action. So if you do not change the ecosystem but you predict the results are going to change, it generally doesn't. And the definition of insanity holds. That if you do the same thing with the same people and expect a different result, that just doesn't work. So we took a look and said, well, we're going to fundamentally, and I hate to use the word transformation because it's a very overused word, and generally what it means is, you transform shareholders' wealth into consultants' wealth, because it's about spending money, and it shouldn't be about spending money. My definition is it's a material change in the way work gets done that translates into a material change in outcome. So in our industry, we have really three kind of general areas that we can look at. We have our people and our people systems. We've got our methods and our practices that we can take a look at, and we've got our technology and tooling. And the combination of those three are really what we have to gauge. And you have to sit there and say, well, where are the elements that we can use, to really kind of change the game? So we took a look at this, and we came up with a couple different areas. And one around the methods and practices and really tooling that we put under an umbrella of our Agile program. We have a strategic lever we called Living Agile, and that's around our methods and practices. We had another, which we call Inspired People, and this is equally as important, which is how do we attract, develop, and retain aspirational people, give them a productive work environment, and inspire them to do some great things. And the third that we had is around operational resilience, and that was because we're merging multiple mainframes, mid-range, low-end, closing 2 data centers, opening up a brand new one in Springfield, and putting on all new networks in. And so the thing is, that's the ticket to play. For any IT group, you can't keep the systems up and running. It doesn't matter how inspirational you are and great things you produce if they go offline. And then the fourth was productive partnerships. And partnership is a word that's overused quite a bit as well. And I think there's two things that have to happen to have a good partnership. One, both sides of the equation have to benefit outside of the commercial arrangement that you have. And I think if you don't do that, both sides have an emotional attachment. It just can't be clinical and arm's length. And I think the other thing is that we want to work with people. We want to work with people we aspire to be like, not necessarily like ourselves. If you surround yourself with those that are just like you, the chances are you're not going to get any better. If you have some people that have different DNA than you have, then somehow you'll learn something from it. It may be lateral. It may be a little bit different. And we've had those experiences as we took a look at that. So if we talk about Agile for a second in our Living Agile piece, and all of you are here because you believe in Agile, which is good. But I think we all have to remember that the premise behind it is simplicity, and visual control systems. And I think if you take a look at the core principles that always stick with me is it's simplicity over complexity, it's clarity over certainty, and it's course correction over perfection. And there was a great thing I met. There's a company we use that's our core claims engine called Guidewire, and I met their CEO, who's a big advocate of Agile in their people systems, their management systems, even how they build their product. But he said something to me, and this was within the first month that I joined here. It stuck with me. And he goes, Jeff, you guys will spend 5 months analyzing something to avoid 2 weeks of rework. Rework isn't bad. Course correction is not bad. Get away from wanting perfection. Look for success, not perfection. That stuck with me quite a bit. So I think the things that we've put into our practices, we call it Agile, and there's pieces of Agile which are technology and tooling and practices and delivery methods. There's other things that are people systems, and sometimes we forget that people systems are equally as important. Those are your visual control systems, your stand-ups, your retrospectives, your showcases, your story cards, your burn down charts, your velocity charts. I was just in Sydney and I was taking a look now that we've had a number of teams for 18 months. And listen, we're going up the maturity curve here. But I think more than anything, you have to, if you're going to do something, do what you believe in and have strong convictions and don't turn away. You don't try something. You shouldn't have let's prove this can work. No, let's go make this thing work.